Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Collegiate Star League. Tonight, we have a very special set of matches. First of all, I want to say my name is Fear Dragon, and in case you guys are wondering, if you're used to hearing Zombie Grub and Rifkin at this stage, they are currently busy in another broadcast, so I have volunteered to fill in, and they were happy to have me, so thank you so much, CS Star League, for having me today. But we're going to be watching some pretty awesome series today. I am actually very excited about it. First of all, we have Georgia Tech versus UT Austin. Now, we've seen 7 weeks of play that have almost finished up over here at the CSL, and all that remains are these two final best of fives. The first best of five, again, Georgia Tech versus UT Austin. Georgia Tech is currently looking to be holding the top seed in the playoffs right now. And if they actually win today's match against UT Austin, then they will end up having a 3-way tie for the top team in their group, which is kind of a very good feeling to make it into the top 3. Even if you are tied with 2 other teams, that's still a pretty good feeling. In the meanwhile, of course, UT Austin is actually out of the situation already. They're not going to be able to qualify for the playoffs, but they still have the ability to play for their pride. And let me tell you something, that you should never underestimate a team that is playing off of just purely pride, because when you're playing for pride, you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose when you go for those crazy builds. You try and go for these crazy risks, and it doesn't matter as much to you besides that pride level. If it doesn't work out, you're going to have fun either way, but your opponent is the one that has to play a little bit more cautious, and you still have that benefit of, hey, I managed to beat this really good player. I feel good about myself, so we still might be seeing some really awesome games here today. I'm actually hoping that some crazy stuff happens in this particular series. Later on, we're going to be seeing a little bit more drama as we see UC Berkeley, who's currently trying to hold their 2nd seed in their group, facing off versus UC Davis. And if UC Davis ends up winning that series, they will actually secure themselves a spot in the playoffs. So a lot is on the line in that particular match. But with that being said, I think that we're going to be jumping into our first series relatively soon. You guys can see over here, we have Georgia Tech getting ready to face off. And of course, we see that they're doing pretty well for themselves, and we can also really quickly jump over to the standings for UT Austin, just to give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of that. I want to give a huge shout out to the people who make the CSL possible, though, before we actually jump into our first game of the day. Of course, Aces ROG is one of the newer sponsors for CSL. They are actually running a competition right now, where if you submit a video of your kind of choosing, it could be a highlight reel, it could be you casting games from your team playing CSL matches that weren't necessarily broadcasted on this channel. The winners of the video tournament, or I suppose you could call it a tournament, the video contest, will end up winning an Aces ROG GL552 laptop. This is a really great laptop. The 2 runner-ups also receive monitors. So if you want your chance to get those videos selected, then please try to enter that competition. But ladies and gentlemen, we are getting started. It looks like I actually, I'm not going to lie, I've already started this off in a bit of a bad start. I guess I'm basically Rifkin right now because I've already messed up the overlays, just like Rifkin, but we are going to be jumping into this. I have the 2v2 overlays set up accidentally. I forgot to reset this, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping on into it as we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner of the map on top of the green Zerg player. Give it up for Isaac. And his opponent spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player. Is going to be Plumerant. And if I have this correctly, I do believe Plumerant is going to be representing Georgia Tech, whereas UT Austin is going to be represented by Isaac in this ZVZ. Now, again, I do apologize for the overlay. The overlays are a little bit weird, but for the most part, they're all still functional, so we're not going to be seeing too much of a downside to this. But regardless, ZVZ on Central Protocol. Central Protocol is a very interesting map. It is a map that is very difficult to defend your natural expansion on, just because your natural expansion is, first of all, so far away from your main base. Look at this long distance that both of these players are going to have to walk with their queens to try and get creep spread up to defend in both locations, it can be very, very annoying. It can be very difficult to get that double queen defense, especially if there's any kind of big run buys. But speaking of run buys, it's so easy to get those run buys because your natural expansion is so wide open. There's a nice wide open ramp. There's a lot of space to work around here with. It's very difficult to get that kind of walling off with maybe a baneling nest and some queens or something to shut down the amount of space that those Zerglings can run by through. Both of these players do end up opening up with, you know, Hatch, then Pool. Both of them end up getting those gas geysers, and I do believe Plumerant was a Grandmaster level Zerg player, so Plumerant definitely going to be a little bit favored in this. We'll see how this ends up going. We already have a couple of Zergons being made over here for Isaac. Looking to maybe just put on a little bit of pressure, just a bit of poking, nothing super duper aggressive. Both these players are going to be droning up behind this, but I want to pay a special attention to the Overlord scouts over here because we have Isaac who's seen the main base, seen the gas guys and everything, and is just going very far south with these Overlords, almost on this retreat path, saying, I don't want to chance these Overlords getting sniped off by Queens or Ravagers or anything of the sort. Whereas we see over here, Plumerant is keeping an eye on this natural expansion ramp. He's ready and waiting to see, okay, I've seen that you have a gas geyser and that you got all of this stuff going. I've seen that you have a natural expansion because you're mining from it. But I want to see if you're making units. I want to see if you're going to be rallying units across the map, if I'm going to be up against a big Ling, Roach, Ravager bust or something else. And Isaac, I feel like, is going to be a little bit more in the dark if these Zerglings are not kept alive. These Zerglings are already going pretty deep into the territory of Plumerant, though. This should be able to get out for a little bit, but Zergling speed finishes up a little bit faster for Plumerant. He also has two additional Zerglings following up behind this, and he's going to be able to completely shut down the vision of Isaac. And this is what I was talking about. This is going to be a really, really scary moment. Isaac has a little bit of vision. He sees some of these Zerglings charged it across the map, and he has a couple of Zerglings out on his own, but he does not have any of those Banelings. Well, actually, it looks like he does have two Banelings finished up. They are sitting back inside of his natural expansion, waiting for Plumerant to maybe overcommit a little bit. Plumerant is not going to do anything of the sort. In fact, he is going to be able to potentially shut down this third expansion as he has some more Banelings of his own morphing in over here on the low ground. Isaac trying to move down with the Banelings of his own, trying to intercept this. Oh, decent trades over there for Isaac. But Plumerant definitely still having a lot more Zerglings is going to be able to easily shut down this third expansion whilst establishing his own. We're already seeing a nice lead over here for Plumerant, the Grandmaster level Zerg player. Showing a dominating lead already, as you can see, not exactly up in the worker counts or anything right now, but still trading out relatively okay. I would say the big thing that Isaac still is going for him is the fact that he still has all of these Banelings morphed in, but he is sitting down in that actual Zergling count. He is sitting down that third expansion, and even his lair tech, you can see Plumerant finishing up that lair tech, or starting it up at least, and Isaac is nowhere to be seen with that lair tech right now. So Plumerant is going to be getting further and further ahead as the game goes on. He has to make something happen over here, but losing these Zerglings is not going to be the way he makes it happen. He charges in a little bit too over aggressive. I guess he maybe should have wanted to, or maybe wanted to have waited for the big engagement over there until after the Banelings had gotten there. But I mean, you can see, even Plumerant not only had the larger number of Zerglings, he also already had 3 Banelings of his own out, ready to defend. And now we're left in a situation where Isaac is going to need to find some sort of way to come back in this game, and his big answer is going to be the roaches that are going to be popping out, and this could work. This really could catch Plumerant off guard if Plumerant does not scout these out. Now the Zerglings do run by over here for Plumerant into the main base of Isaac, but I don't really know if you saw the huge flurry of roaches already out, but here we go. The Zerglings over in the center of the map, as well as these Banelings, kind of awkwardly enough, are going to scout these roaches, charging their way across the map. The roach warren is started up very, very late for Plumerant, but Plumerant is not going to be really relying, I think, on the roaches purely to defend this first wave. He is going to be relying on just getting Zerglings in a big surround, but this is going to be very difficult with Isaac making so many Banelings. How in the world is he going to get the big surround? He's trying to just take out these Banelings slowly but surely, but oh my god, Isaac gets a massive hit off over there, and he takes a massive lead. Right now, Plumerant may be hoping to get some good trades with his own Banelings against the Banelings of Isaac, but I don't think that's really working out too well. These queens also are potentially going to get picked off by these roaches. Isaac with a huge, huge flurry of roaches just charging their way across the map, able to really catch Plumerant off guard, who was very slow not only on that roach production, but it really just didn't have the banelings out to try and deal with his opponent's banelings, and now Isaac is already taking a really nice lead in this game. Gonna be able to take out Plumerant's roaches as they pop out. Is Plumerant gonna be able to find some sort of way to stabilize in this game? I mean, Isaac already also has Zerglings they could even use to help these roaches out. He's not really doing so right now. And I really think he actually does need to use them, yeah, if he wants to break in through here. Because he doesn't exactly have an overwhelming number of roaches right now, but there it is. GG gets called, and Isaac gonna be taking game number 1 for Team UT Austin. Very interesting game that we had over there, where it looked a lot like Plumerant was just able to do a lot of damage early on by taking out that third expansion, trading pretty efficiently, not hyper efficiently, but relatively efficiently in the early stages of that. But Isaac, with that roach transition, that Plumerant was playing very greedy, really delaying that roach transition. I was actually so surprised to see how long he delayed that. But it ended up really coming back to haunt him, as he ended up not being able to defend against the aggression that was coming out from Isaac. And Isaac ends up, again, taking game number 1 for UT Austin. I want to remind you guys that Georgia Tech was the one who is trying to get that tie spot for first place in their group to advance on out in as the number 1 spot, I should say, to get that 3-way tie with some of the other teams in their group. Whereas UT Austin, they're just playing straightly for pride right now, but they are the ones sitting up 1-0 and looking pretty good right now. That is a really comfortable spot to be, already taking a 1-0 lead in this series. I'm very interested to see, again, what is UT Austin going to be able to do. I also want to note again that just taking a look at the ladder rankings, I believe that we ended up seeing Isaac, who was not in Grandmaster. I think he was either a Masters League player or something along those lines, against Plumerant, who I do believe was a Grandmaster level player. So that's already a big upset. A lot of upsets in just a couple of different ways. As I go ahead and try and get the invite to the next game, to game 2. But I do want to remind you guys, of course, about the fantastic sponsors that are available over here at CSL. We were a little bit rushed before game number 1, so I didn't get a whole lot of time to talk about it. But yes, there is the Asus ROG thing going on right now, the competition. But of course, Asus ROG just makes so much of the CSL actually possible right now. So go give them a little bit of love. They are the ones that are not only providing this awesome competition for you guys, but they are also the ones that are going to be funding this season's travel to DreamHack Austin, a really fantastic event that's happening out in May, or pretty soon. But of course, they are also funding the prize pool. So if you want to show some love to Asus ROG, one really great way to do it is you can go ahead and tweet at them at Asus_ROG, give them a follow and tell them that CSL sent you. Tell them that you know, you're really thankful for what they're doing for CSL, if you are thankful for it. But of course, I do want to also give a shout out to Twitch. Twitch is, of course, another great broadcasting partner that sponsors the CSL. And without them, you guys wouldn't really be watching this broadcast, because this broadcast is happening on Twitch. The best way to support Twitch is, well, doing exactly what you guys are doing already right now. You're watching Twitch, you're supporting Twitch. And of course, if you do want to give a follow to the CS Star League channel, then that is another really great way you can get notifications about when more Collegiate Star League matches happen. But I think that we are waiting to see what is going to be happening with game number 2. We're looking for more players, because I think that there was a bit of difficulty in getting some players to show up for one of the teams. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping to a short little break. We'll be back in a little bit with hopefully game number 2. We're going to find out again, is that going to be the Archon mode matches? Is that going to be the 2v2? Or is that going to be the 1v1 match? Still waiting to see. But ladies and gentlemen, you guys are watching the CSL. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be back in a little bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be getting back into it. Thank you so much for your patience. Our game number 2 for this series is going to end up being a Terran versus Zerg. It is going to be between G-Tier Sneezer, who is going to be representing University of Texas Austin, UT Austin, facing off versus J. Teague. I think that's correct. J. Teague, who's going to be going by the name Nietzsche in this game. And he's going to be representing the Georgia Tech University. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping into game number 2. The map will be Dust Towers. And I want to remind you guys that, of course, Georgia Tech, one of the probably favored teams to actually come into this series. They were already sitting up, I think, at a very, very solid lead of 5-1 coming into today. Facing off versus against a team that was 1-5, the opposite score. But still, UT Austin is the team that is currently up 1-0. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be hopping into it. Let's go ahead and do it. So fix the overlays. I did get the correct overlay up this time. So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be spawning down over here, I believe. Yes, down over here. In the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Terran player from Georgia Tech. Give it up for Nietzsche, also known as J. Teague. And his opponent spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. We have the purple Zerg player from Team University of Texas Austin. Give it up for G-Tier Sneezer. Zerg versus Terran on a map that is generally favored to go for some more macro-oriented builds. But, of course, we already see gas opening over here from Nietzsche from Georgia Tech. Maybe looking to go for one of those Reaper openings. But again, like, this is such an easy map to go for macro-oriented builds. One thing I will say is that you end up seeing this a lot in pro-level play, is that a lot of Terran players on Dust Tower specifically, they are just default always going for those reactor Hellion openings on this map. One of the reasons for that is because normally you end up seeing a Zerg player, they take this, you know, natural in-base expansion, then they go for this third expansion. And what ends up happening is by the time the reactor Hellions end up making their way across the map, or, you know, maybe they join up with the Reaper that's potentially still alive if you control it really well, the creep spread has not made it down past this ramp, and that really does allow you to shut down that creep spread. You get it contained to within this little area by having the Hellions charging up over here and denying the creep spread from spreading out any further than there. And it really does cause a lot of problems for Zerg players in defending the later stages of the game, because if that creep spread is backed up to this area, that means that when the later pushes come in for the Terran player with the Marines and their medevac pushes with the stim timing and maybe 1-1 comes out, then it really does mean that the Zerg player does not have that time that they would normally have bought by the fact that the creep spread gets out so far away and the Terran player is scanning and killing off the creep and maybe waiting for it to recede. Otherwise, the Zerg player ends up having those banelings that have that additional speed that comes in from that creep. Sometimes you can even make some defenses, the miraculous defenses against a Terran player, just by having banelings even without speed, but they are just always on creep, so they were able to get those good hits off against the Terran player. So those kind of openings definitely become a lot more popular. We already see a factory being thrown down over here for Nietzsche. He's also going up to that very fast third CC, so really looking to play it out a little bit economically. While his Reaper puts on a little bit of that harassment, we may again be seeing the reactor Hellions coming out as well. For now, just producing 2 Marines at a time, starting to get up a little bit of an army, potentially going to go Overlord sniping, at least denying the Overlord from getting a nice easy scout into his main base to see that third CC, or to see if there's already a starport coming up. There's, I don't know, a Widow Mine drop or something else cheeky coming out. But G-Tier Sneezer are already kind of a little bit slower on taking that third expansion, droning up a good bit behind all this, getting up his Zergling speed, and just getting ready to defend against the Reaper and potentially any other sort of aggression. But again, we have 4 queens out right now. We have that delay on that third expansion. Not really feeling comfortable doing it just yet, since I guess the Reaper is still alive. He wants to be a little bit careful not just lose a drone as it goes to try and take that third expansion. But behind this, starport coming up for Nietzsche. I'm really actually liking Nietzsche's position, where he's going to be getting up a decent amount of tech, picks off the Reaper, and, you know, gets a little bit of scout off with the Reaper, I should say, and sees that drone that's moving over the third expansion, if he was paying attention. And should know that this isn't going to be some crazy Roach Ravager all-in, or unless it's some big mind game where you try and throw down the 3rd expansion and then just go for the all-in anyways. You don't drone it up at all, but I think a little bit less likely. GTR Sneezer is going to be finishing up that Roach Warren though, and has the potential to at least make a couple of Roaches that he may want to make just to deal with some of the potential aggression that could be coming out. Nietzsche did not go for the Reactor Hellion build, did not go for a lot of pressure across the map or anything like that. In fact, just going for that Siege Tank, which is a very, I would say, safe play. That's definitely one of the safer options that you have available to you when you go for this sort of style in Terran versus Zerg. Just because, you know, the Siege Tank is going to be such a great versatile defensive unit. You could defend against big Roach Ravager all-ins. You could defend against, you know, Baneling busts and all kinds of different things with just that single Siege Tank. Whereas Hellions, I mean, they can do okay and, you know, harass down Lings on the other side of the map. They can put pressure on your opponent. But they do struggle a little bit with some of those big Roach Ravager busts that we end up seeing out of some Zerg players. Not necessarily as popular on a map like All Arena, but you do end up seeing that, or sorry, not All Arena, you do end up seeing the Roach Ravager busts out on maps like All Arena, but on Dust Towers, a lot less common. Finally starting to see that Lair Tech coming up for a GTR Sneezer. Maybe looking to get into that late game stage, but with the missile attacks and of course Roaches have already been produced, I'm expecting to see a bit of a just a big Roach Ravager army coming out from GTR Sneezer. Maybe moving into the Hydralisk that some players have liked to go for. Potentially moving into those lurker plays that I think some Terran players have not been a huge fan of, but really it's all about right now for Zerg players moving into that late game Hive Tech stage. But oh, we had a Widowmine drop over here. 3 kills on this Widowmine. Looks like some of the Marines do end up dying to some of those Roaches. But at the end of the day, a little bit of damage done, a little bit of pressure applied, and there's actually no detection coming on over here. I don't actually see any Overseers of production. We don't have a Spore Crawler or nothing, so we're going to end up seeing GTR Sneezer maybe taking a couple of losses over here, just taking a bit of damage on the Roaches. Really well controlled over there. Finally starting up one of those Overseers as he gets the resources for it, and going to be throwing down those gas guys as well behind it, as a Hydralisk Den is going to be going up. So we are going to be seeing that Roach Hydra mid-game style. Now, oftentimes this does end up being a very aggressive style that could potentially even lead to some big all-ins. But again, there is going to be that potential for GTR Sneezer to, while the damage gets done on the other side of the map, well, I should say, he has to worry about defending in his own main base first. And those Hydras are going to be much nicer for dealing with these drops and at least taking off the medevacs. But for now, it's just pure Roaches. So these Marines have already done a fantastic job at picking off some of these drones that we're in over here. Medevac is going to be able to escape out pretty easily, make its way over to the natural expansion, continue this drop harassment. We had yet another medevac picking up that what was just a single Marine, it looks like, doing a little bit of damage. He's still continuing to get some damage done. Already up to 1 kill. Could he get a second one? No, not going to be able to get that. And medevac does end up losing that Marine, not quite paying full attention over there. But once again, I really like this harassment that we're seeing out of here from Nietzsche. GTR Sneezer is starting to get up to a pretty scary unit count, but really in that worker count, he is starting to lack a little bit. Normally, you end up seeing, again, 3 base Terran versus 3 base Zerg. You tend to favor the Terran player a little bit, especially when the Siege Tank count is growing. They're on even upgrades. We're starting to see slightly better tech, I would say, for Nietzsche. And just the worker count, 67 workers to 52. Terran player is definitely feeling a lot more confident in this situation, I think. Georgia Tech definitely showing a little bit more dominance, I would say, in this game. Especially compared to that last game where that ZVZ, I think it was a little bit of a weird situation with just the counterattack moving across the map. Oh, it's Nietzsche. Not quite paying attention to those Marines. Ends up losing a couple of them, but not going to be the worst situation in the world. We do end up having the Polt Viking scouting out ahead. Already gotten 2 Overlord kills so far. Looks like it may end up falling, though, over here. Oh, no, the Marine's coming in to back it up. This Overlord is going to end up falling to that Viking potentially a little bit later on, but the bigger scare is that the 4th expansion is not going to be finished up over here. No Banelings available. It's really just going to be about that Roach Hydra defense, but with the Siege Tank sieged up in a really scary position over here, I don't think there's any, no way you defend that 4th expansion. The rally across the map is also going to make this very difficult, but really, I feel like GT Sneezer is really going to be relying on Nietzsche overcommitting without the defensive position of those Siege Tanks. Manor Mule's coming down right now, and Georgia Tech is saying, get out of this game. You may have taken game number 1, But we are going to be taking game number 2, tying up the series 1-1. It is going to be so difficult for GT or Sneezer to actually make this work. GG gets called. Pause. I don't know if that was a bit of a misclick, but regardless, Georgia Tech taking game number 2 and tying up the series 1-1. Very interesting game that we ended up seeing over there, as I guess it was really just, it was a pretty straightforward game. We ended up seeing, I suppose, GT or Sneezer trying to go for that big Roach Hydra play, but really sticking around on a very, very low drone count. And quite frankly, I guess just missing out on the opportunity to make the damage happen with it. If you're going to go for the Roach Hydra count or the Roach Hydra play, like I was saying before, it's very common to see that sort of style, that sort of unit composition lead into a big, big attack, to lead into a really big mid-game play where you try and shut down either a third expansion or a fourth expansion, or you just try and do some big damage to your opponent before they can really skyrocket off of that big economy. But we really didn't end up seeing that, and instead we ended up seeing Nietzsche from Georgia Tech getting a really, really great economy, 67 workers off of the 3 bases, tied up with his opponent, tied up on upgrades, and even getting up those siege tanks into a pretty high number, which I think is just all of those factors combined. It was a little bit too much. I think that GT or Sneezer really needed to put on a little bit more aggression if we wanted to make it work. And Nietzsche ends up again tying up the series for his team. Georgia Tech still looking for the potential to get that 3-way tie in their group. And UT Austin maybe just having a little bit of fun. And we are going to be hopping into the 2v2 next, so I'm very interested for that. Going to go ahead and get that overlay, of course, set up. Make sure I don't have that mistakenly forgotten about. But looks like the map for this 2v2 is going to be Seething Jungle. Seething Jungle. For those of you who are not super familiar with the 2v2 maps, don't worry. You're going to be joining me on this as we can take a look at a little bit of a kind of what the map looks like. You can see over here we have the 2 join bases. One of those maps where you do have a join base with your teammate. You're not completely separated and isolated. And that generally does end up leading to some things where you end up seeing players try to go for those joint wall-offs over at the front and everything. But of course, this is also a map where both players can easily grab those natural expansions. I wouldn't say super easily. It is still a little bit of a tricky situation to defend those natural expansions against big 1 or 2 base aggression from your opponent, depending on whether or not they are Zerg players. But it can still be a bit of a cool map where you're not forced to decide which player is going to get the expansion and which player is just going to be sacrificing themselves on 1 base to get up a lot of units, because their other expansions, the other natural expansion is just so far away. There are a couple of maps that are like that. But really, I would say over here, third expansions start to get a little bit weirder. I think you can go for the third expansions on this map, but it really, really does get a little bit difficult to do. At this point, I think we're waiting on, I believe, UT Austin's partner for the 2v2. It is going to be a Terran Protoss for UT Austin. It looks like Black Toitus, Black to this, Black to this, Back to this. Oh my god, I'm actually adding in an L into that name. Back to this, and Gray 22, playing as Terran and Protoss respectively for UT Austin. Facing off against RRR93, the Terran player for Georgia Tech, and Master DZ 522, who's going to be a Zerg player from Georgia Tech. And we got both of our Georgia Tech players over here. Both of them are very, very ready. But it looks like we're going to be heading to a long break. 25-minute break potentially. Ladies and gentlemen, I really do want to thank you for any of the patience that you guys have been showing. Oh boy. But we hopefully will be back at some point soon. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are watching the CSL. In the meanwhile, if you're looking for something to do while we're sitting around during the break, then one thing you can do is go ahead and check out the CS Star League over on Twitter. You can also check out the sponsor Asus ROG. You can find them at Asus_ROG on Twitter. And I believe CS Star League is just at CS Star League on Twitter. But my name is Fear Dragon, and you guys are watching the Collegiate Star League. We'll be back hopefully once this game is ready to get started. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, and just to clarify, I do believe that we ended up seeing a situation where University of Texas Austin actually just straight up did not have any more players that they could really field. So by default, it would go to the 2v2, which Georgia Tech would, of course, win by default because there weren't enough players to play the 2v2. And after that, it would go to the Archon mode match, where there were, again, not enough players to play in the Archon mode match. So I guess that ends up meaning that Georgia Tech takes the 3-1 victory. So for those who are wondering, I don't think we're actually going to be jumping back into this next series. I'm going to double check on this. I may return back from the break just to confirm this. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that we may have just seen Georgia Tech advance on out. And if they did, then they're going to be pretty happy getting that three-way tie in their group. But I will 100% confirm those details in a little bit. So don't go anywhere. All right, yeah, just got confirmation. Georgia Tech did end up being victorious over here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be jumping into our next series in a little bit. You guys are going to have to wait a little bit. I'm so sorry for that, but that is going to be UC Berkeley facing off versus UC Davis. This is a very important match because UC Berkeley, of course, the second seeds in the group right now, but UC Davis going to be fighting for their playoff potential. If they want to make it to the playoffs, they have to win this series versus UC Berkeley. So it's an important match for them. We're going to be hopping into that in a little bit. So stick around, guys. You guys are watching Collegiate Star League.